like that into something like this. The two questions that I get asked most often after I play a concert are, how do you make your fingers move so fast? And how do you remember all those notes? There's a short answer, lots and lots and lots and lots of practice. And after a hard day practicing hard piano music, I actually really like to unwind by listening to science. This is partly because I'm really fascinated by the actual scientific discoveries, and I love podcasts, TED Talks, chatting with friends. But I think it's also because I really relate to the process of finding those scientific discoveries out. So as I understand it, that process includes slogging through lots of short-term details for the sake of a long-term goal that might not even be possible, experimenting to see what works and what doesn't work, analyzing complicated and often nonverbal architectures of ideas, handling simultaneous conflicting concepts at the same time, and then on a really, really good day, you get to discover creative, fun, intuitive epiphanies. This sounds to me just like practicing the piano. So just like science, practicing the piano has its fun and creative and intuitive moments, but most of what I'm doing is analytical problem solving and repetition. I have to figure out how to do something, and then I have to repeat it enough that I can trust that I'll play it the way I want it to. So the first step is parsing a nonverbal code, and I want to take just a minute to go through how to read music very, very quickly. Every note on the keyboard has its own spot on the staff and its own letter name, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The notes go up, they go down, and they stay the same. We mark timed silence with squiggles and squares. We read from left to right, just like reading English. Mostly the right hand plays the top line, the left hand plays the bottom line, and stuff occupying the same vertical happens at the same time. A beam makes things go twice as fast. And twice as fast. And twice as fast. So hopefully with that you can see that this is fairly easy. And this is a little more difficult. And this might kill you. So how do you memorize something like that? Well, let's look at the process. When I'm memorizing, learning music, I'm analytically problem solving from 4 different directions. And those are the 4 different kinds of memory that I need. How something looks, how it sounds, how it feels, and how it's shaped. So first is visual memory. For me, the way the notes look on the page is actually not that helpful. I don't have a full-on photographic memory, and I'm very jealous of those who do. So I can't remember all the little dots on the page, but actually, how my hands look on the keyboard is a huge part of figuring out how to do a jump like this. So that visual moment is very important in the learning process. Next is the aural memory, and this usually puts itself in place while I'm figuring out how I want something to sound. So I have to make decisions like, do I want to listen to the top part of the right hand when I play this? Or do I want to listen to the thumb of the right hand? By the time I've really worked that out, the tune gets stuck in my head, and that means that the aural memory is pretty much in place. Next is the physical memory, and this is really where I have to get into my analytical problem solving. And I have a real incentive to solve my problems and figure out how to do things, because if I don't, well, first of all, it can sound terrible, but it also can really hurt a lot. So I want to try and figure out how to do things. And this involves a lot of problem solving, and I want to show you some of those problems. So when I do this left-hand pattern, If I try to stretch between my pinky and my ring finger to play this, sounds terrible, and it's really hard, and it hurts, and life is miserable, and I'd rather go watch Netflix. But it actually works if I use a position that I call the one-eared llama, like, hello, I am a two-eared llama, hello, I am a one-eared llama, because the distance between the ear and the nose of the llama is an easier way to play this pattern. Sometimes I'm trying to teach one hand how to do two things at once. In this one, the left hand is playing just a little boom chuck pattern. The bottom part of my right hand is playing this simple little chord. And then the top part of my right hand is playing this really evil, difficult climb. So I'm doing that at the same time as this. That's only possible if my thumb isn't collapsed. So if my thumb is collapsed, I can't do it. But if I make sure that my thumb is really supported, see, collapsed, supported, it becomes possible. And actually, it turns out that Chopin's hand has this beautifully supported thumb joint there. This is from a marble in Budapest. Sometimes I'm trying to teach one hand to play one rhythm and the other hand to play another rhythm. So actually, could I have everybody please, we're going to do some audience participation. Could you all please do stomp, clap, clap, stomp, clap, clap, stomp, clap, clap, stomp, clap, clap, and keep that going? Great. Keep going. Thank you. So now could you please do stomp, clap, ready, and go? Great. So now stomp and then clap really, 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 really quietly and decide if you want to do two or three at the same time. So stomp, 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 stomp. Listen to both. Thank you. So I'm doing both of those at the same time. Sometimes I have to think about two and three at the same time in a different way. So this rhythmic gesture is in groups of three. Can you hear that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But the actual physical gesture is in two-note groups. It's going up and up and up and up and up and up. So when I play something like this, I'm sort of experiencing 2 and 3 at the same time. So by the time I've got all that in place, the muscle memory is there. But muscle memory is a fickle friend because your body doesn't always feel the same. Especially when you feel nervous, your body feels totally different. We already heard about that today. So you have to have a backup system, and this is where we come to how it's shaped, the analytical memory. So what I have to do when I'm dealing with my analytical memory is I have to find patterns, I have to understand the grammar, and I have to chunk my information. So let me show you how this works. If I were to tell all of you that on Monday, you're going to be required to stand up on this stage and recite from memory this sequence of letters, I think you're going to feel like I just ruined your weekend. But maybe you're game and you decide to do it, so you might look to see if anything jumps out at you. And maybe if you're a Scrabble player, you might see that WXIJ, and you might say, oh, look, that happens twice. Then you might look at what happens right before it and right after it, and you might see that there's actually a string that repeats itself. Well, if something happens twice, you only have to learn it once. So now we have less information we have to deal with, but you're still kind of depressed about this task, I think. But you might go back in and look for patterns, and you might see, well, TU, that's an alphabetical order pair. Okay, WX, that's an alphabetical order pair, and actually they're all alphabetical order pairs. Maybe that's interesting. So then at this point, you might start moving them around to see if you can find some kind of pattern to make some kind of sense out of this. Well, if you look at the red letters, you're probably not going to feel like you've really gotten very far. But if you look at the black letters, you might start seeing some sort of pattern that might be helpful. If you go down for the first line. So then we might actually put this in order. And then if we put back in the thing we took out, maybe this pattern doesn't seem quite as daunting. This is the kind of thing that I have to deal with when I'm trying to figure this out. So if I play something like this, that's a lot of notes. But it happens that the stuff in the blue boxes is the same, just a little higher. And if I collapse them all down to their closest position, I can really think of all of those as being this chord, and I have a name for it, which is C major. So I'm thinking of one piece of information instead of all of those pieces of information. Sometimes there's a little more noise thrown in. Here, this is a Chopin nicknamed wrong note etude. So he kind of wrote in these wrong notes that then resolved to the right notes. And if you try to memorize the information of the wrong notes, that's really hard to figure out, just like our alphabetical order pairs in Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But if you accept that the wrong notes are just kind of these mean downstairs neighbors, and you think about this I can actually think of as being one chord, which is E minor. So I can think of that that way. So then what do you do when you see something like this? Well, first you cry, and then you start looking for patterns. So you might see that it goes in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out. So let's look at that very first little in-out pair. So the top notes of the right hand are B, F, D, G sharp. And it so happens that those are also the top notes of the left hand, B, F, D, G sharp. The bottom notes of the right hand are also the same as the bottom notes of the left hand. And actually, just those notes together are B, F, D, G sharp. So actually, we can think about all of this as being this chord, which is easier to think about than this. So I won't walk you through all of this, but the next red box is exactly the same thing, a step lower. And then he changes and changes and changes. So instead of thinking about all of this information, I can think about, which is much easier for my poor brain to handle. So what I just showed you is between the first blue arrow and the second blue arrow. I won't walk you through it, but trust me that between the second blue arrow and the third blue arrow is the same thing a step down. And then at the third blue arrow, it's the same thing a step down again. So it's very much worth my while to be good at starting at the first blue arrow, and also good at starting at the second blue arrow, and also good at starting at the third blue arrow, so that if panic strikes or something happens in between two arrows, I can jump to the next place. So that's building myself a safety net. So once I've chunked my information, then I'm ready to think about the larger structure. And it so happens that a lot of classical music is in ABA form. It's just shaped like a sandwich. You have a thing, and then a different thing, and then a thing that's similar to the first thing. Once I have my overall structure, I make a theory map. I actually write out all the chords. I make my students do this too. And then once I have my theory map, I have to memorize the map. And one way that I do this is by playing the music while saying the name of the chord. So I might do something like A minor, D minor, A minor, E7, A, E. And if I want to emphasize the chords, the harmonies, relationships to each other, rather than just their individual identities, I can throw numbers at them. So I can say 1, 4, 1. 5, 1, 5, 1. So by the time I figured out how to do that, all 4 of my memories are in place. How it looks, how it sounds, how it feels, and how it's shaped. And here's the really cool thing. When I say that the memory is in an actual place, it's an actual place. With every repetition that I have to do, my brain is building myelin, which is the unbelievable protein that wraps itself around neural pathways and makes them go faster. So I'll leave you with a quotation from somebody who had a lot of musical myelin and a question. Einstein said, "If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I think in music. I live my daydreams in music." Our next generation of scientists has a lot of problems to solve. Here's my question. What kind of discoveries might they come up with if we make sure that they know how to think in music? Thank you.